Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Check Your Six. We're checking in on the third week of Collegiate Rainbow Six, as well as recapping the Pro League finals that happened last weekend and wrapped up, early Sunday morning? Yeah, I ended up catching the VODs. It was too early for me. So I caught those games and man, I was really pulling for Dark Zero, but in the end, I guess it just wasn't meant to be, despite such a strong showing from them throughout the rest of the tournament. Yeah, I mean, I really thought for a moment with the Navi versus Team Reciprocity match, I mean, it went the distance, 3 maps, and Reciprocity was so close to holding on to it and just pulling through, but it just seemed like Navi had a little more gas in the tank to just close it out. Yeah, that's a long day. Yep. Oh, seems like you might, or I might have messed up some of my audio settings. Central Gaming telling me that you're muted on your end or on my end, so let me fix that real quick. Um, hmm. Oh, oh.
Did you mute me? Mute me in Discord accidentally?
I think I fixed it. Let me double
Okay.
check. I think I might have bumped a different setting in OBS. And this is what post production is. Can you try talking? We'll see if
Test, test, test. Can everyone hear me? Am I
I don't know. I haven't heard anything back, but you should be fine now.
let
I'm
me
seeing the levels happen, so we should be good now.
okay, let me
Okay, yeah, you're good.
okay, cool.
So where were we? So Navi Reciprocity long match, like, and you were saying that what time they started their Dark Zero matchup in the finals was what 1:40 p.m. So
Yeah.
between 10 a.m. when they
One
started,
1:40 a.m. is when they started their
1:40
match
a.m.
against Dark Zero. At least that's what I don't remember exactly what time, but that's what time CHGG is reporting is when it started. Was 1:40 a.m. Central Time at least. So, um, but yeah, so assuming that their match against Reciprocity was roughly 3 hours for 3 maps, they would get done about 1 a.m., which leaves them about 40 minutes before their match against Dark Zero, which honestly makes sense because after the match they said, did you do any prep? They're like, well, we had about 30 minutes of prep, and then we kind of just played the match. So that makes sense that they didn't have much time to prep. Um,
And
but
they're kind of lucky. Well, I mean, I won't say lucky. I mean, they obviously did the job that needed to be done, but like had Villa gone longer, and I mean that was a 7-1 for Navi. If that was as hard fought as map 1 where it was 8-7, like I don't like I have a hard time believing that both teams keep that kind of momentum going. Like Navi went 7-1 on second map and then 7-5 on the third map. If they went into Dark Zero having gone like overtime rounds or near overtime rounds in all three maps and then get 40 minutes break to try and change their mindset for playing Dark Zero, arguably considered the better NA team, like that's got to be an incredible mental game shift. But then also if Navi still pulled that off, I mean they did pull it off. I mean they still came back and then they won 2-0 against Dark Zero.
no, I wouldn't say that they're arguably considered the best NA team. I mean, they are according to the stats. They are the number one team in NA. So, uh, but
This is true.
anyways, um, after hearing, seeing some of the players talk from Dark Zero talk about the Navi match, they all claim that they didn't play very well, all this kind of stuff, and that they're kind of disappointed in how it turned out. And honestly, like I think that they're being a little bit too hard on themselves. I watched the full match, and they played extremely well. Yeah, they may have that. There's a difference between not playing well and just generally like being outplayed. Both teams played really well. And unfortunately, Navi just kind of outplayed them. So it's not that Dark Zero played badly; they didn't play bad by any means. Navi, I think they just are incredible adapters, and they kind of just adapted. After the first couple rounds, they kind of adapted to Dark Zero's playstyle and pretty much just kicked it up a gear and overtook them, unfortunately. But everyone was kind of rooting for Dark Zero to finally bring home a win for NA. I know I was, but
And we were so close to an all NA final.
yeah, we could taste it, but unfortunately, we don't have one yet.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at the score 7-4, 7-3 between Dark Zero and Navi, two maps in the grand final, and it just looks like really that Dark Zero wasn't able to get anything really strung together. Like looking at the rounds on Consulate, they got a couple rounds in rounds 4 and 5 back to back, but that was their only back to back string to get going, and then everything was just picked apart on Coastline. So whether they had, I don't know which one was their map pick. I can't remember. Here we go. Consulate was Dark Zeros, so when they lost that 7-4, that's always been a comment made by the commentators. Like when you lose the map that you pick, and when it's lost maybe handedly, that it's got to be a bigger mental blow that you have to be able to sustain through, and it just going into Navi's map and both teams being as dangerous as they are, Navi, as you said, also being great adapters, like they were able to capitalize on that mental switch up.
Yeah, honestly, I've been thinking for quite a long time now on um what the difference is between NA and EU, and like why EU is just so dominant. Why can't NA beat EU? I think that Pro League match kind of answered the question for me. And it's not that EU has better strats than we do, or they're not. EU doesn't have better gunners. I think the difference between NA and EU is adaptability. Um, in my opinion, now I could be wrong, but from what I've seen is EU tends to adapt a lot faster and a lot more efficiently mid game than NA does, and I think NA is too focused on sticking to their their strategy that they have practiced, and they don't know how to, um, switch it up as well as EU does when necessary. So, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but that's just like what I've gathered.
I could kind of see that, but at the same time, the flavors are just a little bit different. Like everything's off a little bit between the two. So NA favors certain maps, and EU favors other maps. The bans and the operator bans and operator picks also just have a little bit of that different flavor. And when you start matching up those tendencies on the NA side, after trying to take into account their EU counterparts or their opponents going into the Pro League, like it's also just enough to think like trying to adjust for those things in the long game is more difficult, especially going into the EU flavor. Like maybe NA to EU is more difficult than EU to NA based off of the styles that are being played. And if Navi went into the tournament thinking, okay, we're going to play Dark Zero at some point, they could have been studying up more on them and then just understanding some of those shifts. Like if Dark Zero was really into that Warden pick on stairwells, like I think Reciprocity was, um, that could be something that's more easily countered by their play style and then how the EU operators are played as opposed to how NA takes on those operators. So it's really hard to break that down in different actions unless you're going to do like a player by player analysis of how they're playing the same strategies. And even then, I couldn't even tell you if both teams are playing a similar strategy for each site.
Yeah. No, they're not playing the same strategy for each site. I mean, as far as experienced teams go, um, I would say probably everyone in Pro League has multiple strats for every um because the moment like if you only have like one or two strats, for a certain site, or every site for that matter, people are going to pick up on that and they're going to exploit it to the max. Because they know for a fact this is what you're going to do. But if you have multiple strats for every site, the enemy team's always like, okay, like what are they going to do now? It's never
Mm-hmm.
okay, this is what they're going to do. Let's do this. And that's where a lot of the work of an analyst comes in, is like, they say like, okay, they tend to do this and this. You know, I'm gonna predict that they may do something like this. And this is like how they play, so it may be a good idea to do, um, and
Yeah, I 100% agree. And that was one thing that the commentators noted on the Dark Zero versus FaZe match was that Dark Zero was going on to the same site for the third time, and they had a third separate strategy to mitigate that. So there was no way FaZe could have been ready for each time that they went to that site. There's no way that they could have been ready for that, especially as is like first look, you get one round or you get one strategy. Second look, a couple rounds later, are they going to do the same thing? Do they even have a memory of what that attack looked like? And then can they be just more reactive to that separate strategy? And when you get a third one in there, when you have as many as 15 rounds and you have a different look each time, that's got to be a bit of a mental strain to really put your opponents through to force that. So I absolutely agree with you. And maybe that was something that was also picked up on, was like that this was kind of the unique thing for Dark Zero, is that they had the strategy, the pockets of strategies, just the depth of strategy going on, maybe not necessarily like the individual gunner play, but and while you were saying like EU has more of that um, being able to better adapt in the moment. And maybe that's where we're seeing is like we have NA has the deeper strategy pockets, but EU has the faster adaptability. Well, we have plenty of time in the off season to figure out how we approach EU, but then also starting to figure out the rest of the Pro League again, as I'm sure the roster shuffle is about ready to begin in the next couple of weeks, heading into December and through the holidays, and probably well into January as well. So, if you had any bold predictions on which team is going to make the most number of changes going into the next season, what do you or who do you think that'll be? Yeah, let's keep it focused to NA, and we'll like it could be roster shuffles, it could be role changes, it could just be like flat out just throwing out the old plan and trying something new, whether it's a new coach, adding an analyst, anything like that. Who do you think is going to go through the most change? Yeah, we did talk about it last week, and we kind of left it as a this is yet to be determined rumor going out and around. Hmm. Okay, I mean that seems perfectly reasonable. If there's been more roster changes than what I've been seeing, then by all means, like that's how it's going to go. But for me, I still think that there may be something with Space Station Gaming. I don't think I can't imagine that they would be happy with where they finished this last season, and I know that they're just really hungry for competition. They've been trying to prove themselves time and time again across all of the games that that organization participates in, and I just think they're going to make a bigger move this time around. Um, Not just a single player, but or a couple of players, but maybe something a little bit bigger. But I don't know. That's just a gut feeling. I have nothing to base that off of, other than I know that they're hungry for competition. And this has been one of the games that they seem to be most adamant about participating in or have been. So I don't know. I expect a little bit more of a maybe a passion move more so than like the smart long term play kind of deal. They just want to see something shaken up and get out of this kind of fourth, fifth kind of funk kind of thing. Hmm. 10 hours. Can you say that again? I went all robo audio. Just that last part about what Lycan had said. Something unexpected. Fair enough. Yep, and I will sit in the corner with my tinfoil hat on, and I will figure out my Nostradamus predictions to myself. I told them to you off air, and I'll keep it there, but I'll write it down on a little piece of paper, put it in an envelope, and then open it when I'm right. I'm okay. I'll grab a pencil. Of course, in a digital age, I don't have paper nearby me, so I will write it down momentarily. Okay. Okay, 1 second. Paper? I'm not showing anything yet. Okay, should I show it on camera? Okay, I have it up, It's backwards. I'm sorry. I'll write it backwards, I guess. I don't know. Oh, I guess I could do that too. Okay, holding up the paper again. Okay, paper's down. We have proof. It'll be great. And I will, it'll make the audio form for next time when we have this conversation about what happens even better, because then I'll just say I was right, and then we'll have video evidence that I can clip and put on to the Twitterverse and call it out that I was right. And maybe I should have been the analyst. I'll text it to you in chat. That's what I put down. Okay, do we want to spoil it? I mean, I spoiled it for anyone on my channel, but do you want to spoil it for your channel? Very bold. It's true they have. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, this is total tinfoil hat and like go big or go home kind of perspective. But so it was around this time last year, and this has nothing to do with R6 as a game, as Ubisoft is running it, as an esport or whatever. But around this time, when there is a lack of information about going a scene going forward, or there's major changes going on that not everyone is already affecting. I mean, you yourself have already said that like you think that the major changes in the rosters and the teams have all kind of already happened, and so for this to kind of be an unknown about what Space Station is doing about a position that they had, hey, let's fill this, and then like you said, 10 hours later said, never mind, something unexpected happened, and it's very likely that it's something like what you said. Someone said they're gone. Actually, it's like they pulled a Brett Favre. They're out of retirement. They're coming back. Great, and it's nice and easy to make that work. But for me, like this time last year, and again, nothing to do with CR6 or R6 or anything, but this time last year when Blizzard was supposedly going like, yes, we're doing HGC next year. We'll have more details soon. They pulled the rug out from the entire community, the entire dev team, and it was all about profits. It all started lining up in terms of how much that scene costs to run. And so December being around that time, like companies and business don't really care how well your team performed or how good the players are, if they're talented or if you have the admin behind it. and the infrastructure for success in the future, all in all, business doesn't matter. I think SSG is also aligning themselves very much with the mobile space, which is incredibly big and it's growing at an immense rate, that they might just be doing a company restructuring. They might be trying to reorganize their resources to focus more on that space. And I mean, it wouldn't be necessarily a bad move given how big that scene is overseas, that this could just be a pivoting restructuring of the organization. And when it comes down to this December timeline, this is when a lot of changes are made. This is like the last opportunity to start recouping any sort of loss or start preparing for that next fiscal year. So that's my perspective, is that it has nothing to do with the players, that it has nothing to do with the admin behind it, that it's strictly a business decision. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I mean, the fact that R6 is as big as it is and has just been growing the last couple of years at a really good rate, considering the kind of launch that the game had originally, like, yeah, that's nothing to scoff at. And the fact that their esports scene is so big, the fact that you can look at CR6 and be like, it's 212 teams. You have a player base that's going to grow up with this game now. You have something that's going to last 5, 6, 7 years of a competitive scene at the least. Uh, I don't know how that's possible. Well, I don't know what to say about that. Everything. Yeah, quite possibly. I mean, I just had 4 or 5 different sources on OBS show up that I've never had mapped as audio devices. Well, maybe I'll get the VOD audio from you and do some editing if I'm having setup problems. Ah, I did not know that. So that is potentially problematic. Yeah, I'm recording locally, but if there's a reason why you weren't being mapped to the stream, there's a chance that I missed all of your audio entirely, even though I fixed it when eCentral was in here. Well, if that's the case, then there's not much else really worth saying at this point if I can't prove that there's a podcast to record. So there wasn't a whole lot going on with CR6 this week. We're still waiting on a number of matches. They're going into week 4 of the Premier League, and then we'll go into the 32 team playoffs. But I don't know if there's really much else to say at this point other than we'll catch up next week just as soon as I can fix my audio problems, apparently. Yeah, I can hear you just fine. And I see you coming through on my mixers. I can see you registering in OBS. I have no idea why you wouldn't be coming through to the stream. Yep. Yep. I don't know. Well, I'll try and salvage what I got and see if there's anything there, and if not, probably. Yeah, that's true. Well, we wanted to keep it a little short this week anyways. There wasn't a whole lot left other than me going down the tinfoil rabbit hole some more. So we can figure that out. We'll see if I'm right next week, and we can kind of just shuffle this under the rug in case there's no audio or there's audio problems. So we'll figure that out. Other than that, I think Pro League wrapped up nicely. You and I can at least have a conversation. Pro League wrapped up nicely, and it's going to be potentially something or potentially nothing, whatever happens with Space Station Gaming and this unexpected event that happened. So we have proof whether or not I think we have proof of my tinfoil hatness, and I will probably have to apologize at some point for how far off base that was, but we will have to wait and see. Let's see. Yeah, I mentioned some of the CR6 stuff. We'll get into it probably more next week because we'll have all of week 3 and some of week 4 to talk about in terms of matchups. The one matchup I'm looking forward to is Texas A&M's A-Team, Alpha, and the Colorado Boulder Black Team being the other top team in the Premier League, who've also just been showing off quite a lot of strong play over the last 6 weeks of play. So that's the one match that we called out last week, and we're hoping, and it actually got set up this week, so I can't wait to hear how that match goes, or hopefully Texas A&M or CU Boulder will stream that match. I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait for that. Sweet. Well, I would ask if there's anything that you want to say, but there's no hope that you will actually be heard, so I think it's time to call it a night. All right, thanks for joining me, and thanks for everyone in chat. I appreciate it, even though there was technical difficulties, and we will figure this out before we come back next week. Syntax says bye, whether or not you can hear him. Anyways, later everyone. I will catch you all next week.